Hello and welcome to Switch Flicks. I'm your host Haitham, and today I'm with my British stalker, Katie. Katie, how you doing today?
Hi, Sam. I'm doing good, thank you. Thank you for asking me to be on the podcast today. I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for texting me to be on the
Oh,
podcast, and thanks for emailing me to be on the podcast. Those
yeah.
bunch of times, yeah. And then thanks for turning up outside my house in the rain, all those
Yeah.
times to do the podcast. That's really great. Thank you.
Today, if you haven't gathered yet, we're going to be reviewing the Netflix sensation Baby Reindeer. We have thoughts, but before we begin, let's take a look at the rules.
The rules of the show are simple. Our critics review a film, but one of them has to love it and the other has to hate it. And who does what is determined by the flip of a coin. But there's another catch. At any point during the debate, either one of them can shout, "Switch!" At which point, the opponents have to instantly switch positions. So if they loved it, they now have to hate it, and if they hated it, now they have to love it. Let the games begin!
Well, now we know the general rules, but who decides where we begin? Well, that's the coin that we're talking about. Katie's about to flip the coin of fate. If it lands on heads, she has to love Baby Reindeer. If it lands on tails, she has to hate it. Katie, are you ready to flip the coin?
I'm ready. Okay. Heads.
Heads, you love Baby Reindeer. I'll let you begin.
I do. I love Baby Reindeer. Okay, and what better way to draw you in to a Netflix series to tell our audience that this is a compelling true story, which is on the poster. And so we instantly know that everybody is going to be watching this. They're going to know that it's a true story. This thing's happened for real. Okay, and this guy.
This guy is the worst. Okay, let me stop you there. We begin this thing and it says it's a true story, and that is incredibly exploitative of not just the audience, but everybody else on the show. For starters, this show would not be remotely as interesting if it wasn't a true story. It's the only reason why we're watching.
This is the way that you uh, raise awareness about some of the issues that are that are in the show, and it's a softer way of getting these things across, and it's very important.
It is terrible to sit through these 7 long episodes where I am just watching horrible things happen to horrible people, and I just hated my life. And everybody on the show is so instantly disliked.
We don't just watch television and film though to evoke happy emotions, do we? No, we also watch television and film to relate to it.
Well,
We watch television and film to feel sad sometimes, to feel
then why have a title like Baby Reindeer? When I saw the title, I was like, okay, this is going to be a true
switch.
story. When I saw the title Baby Reindeer, what a compelling title. What does it mean? What does Baby Reindeer mean? Is it about Santa's reindeer? Is it about Rudolph? No, it is something about much darker.
But when we get into the story, I think it's incredibly uncomfortable to watch. From the off, it's incredibly uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah,
Okay, unbearably so. Okay,
exactly.
and by episode 3, you just want to go, I cannot watch any more, and then it just gets worse. Okay.
No, this show is so difficult to watch. It is unbearable, and that's what makes it special. Never before have I seen a show that made me want to avert my eyes. This is a horror show, but it is true. It is reality, and it speaks of men's like all the trauma that me as a man has to have gone through. And I finally somebody's telling a man's story, and that's why I love the show.
But this show does absolutely nothing for creatives as well, because remember that episode where he's in Edinburgh and he is in the back room of a pub and he's trying to perform his show, and it just looks like there's no hope for him.
Switch.
And it's such a true depiction of Edinburgh, let me tell you, as somebody who has spent time there during the Fringe Festival in Edinburgh. This is what comedians are doing. They are performing to rooms full of people who don't want to listen, and it's bleak, so bleak. And I've never seen such a true representation of that on the television before.
When I see my comedians, I want to laugh, right? So when the show first came out and I heard this was from a comedian and it's like a, one man show, I was like, here we go. Here is the next Fleabag. I'm gonna laugh. I'm gonna see a hot comedian and a hot priest. No one was hot on the show, by the way. Let's face it, no hot people. Um, and instead, we get, three uncomfortable episodes, and then episode four. Oh my God. What a disgusting 45 minutes. I don't know how I sat through it. Seeing this man go through this, making the same mistake over and over again. Awful.
I think you've been a real and raw episode. I think it's important that this is written. I think it's important to the storyline as well that we know about his trauma, because this character, and I know it's a true story, but he's a character in the show. He's acting in a way that we don't quite understand, and we have to have episode 4 to understand why he is acting in this way. And it is it's compelling, it's upsetting, but it's also it's real TV.
It, it is upsetting for the sake of being upsetting. It is trying to rile you up. And that, I think, is the problem.
Switch.
This show is trying to rile you up. It is so provocative, and that's what I want when I see a show. I want to be provoked. I want to be, I want to feel things. I want to ask questions, and I had so many questions. I had so much sympathy for this man. Not only did I have sympathy for him, but also Martha. What an excellent performance of this kind of, mentally unhinged stalker. I was asking myself questions like, what would I do if this happened to me? And it very well could have. I
But
could have pants.
we have to question the ethics of portraying this woman's story on this show, though, because how do you think it makes this woman feel to know that this story is being told? And I don't think it should have been told in the manner that it was told, and I think it's insensitive.
Oh, come on. She is the stalker here. Are we in a world where being sensitive towards stalkers? Donnie is the victim here, right? We need the victims to tell their stories,
They are both victims, though. I think there are two victims here,
Mhm.
and I question whether this was done in the appropriate manner to take the other victims' feelings and mental health into consideration.
Oh, we're making TV here. We're not supposed to be thinking about other people's feelings. And I think the show does an excellent job, right? Oh, they changed her name. Is her name Martha? Is it something else? We don't know. It could be Bertha. It could be Shamartha.
I just don't think that they have given any consideration into trying to hide who these people are in real life, given that the guy who's playing Donnie is the guy that went through this situation in real life. I don't think any consideration's been given to that.
Which is, I think, really cool because then after the show, I get to remain in the world of the show. I get to do research. I get to do, conspiracy theories and more conversations outside the show. Who is she? I started stalking all the possible women who could be stalking. And so you become part of the show in a way. I am Baby Reindeer. And,
Well, now
what more?
everyone in the world is stalking the people from this program, and it's crazy.
Exactly, right? And it's number one. So many people are watching the show because it really speaks to a lot of people. And I am sad that you cannot
Switch.
understand. I am sad for the state of television if this is the kind of thing that people are compelled to watch. Things have really gone downhill. This is the same kind of, people right now have obsession with like these true crime things. It is media, taking the worst of humanity and then trying to glamorize it, glorify it, and I think that is what's wrong with Baby
It's
Reindeer.
entertainment, and above all, it's understanding, right? We want to hear other people's experiences. We want to hear other people's stories because we want to understand it ourselves. It's important. It's very important to the story. It's important to the script itself, which, by the way, is an excellent script. The characters, the way his arc and her arc are written is so great. The dialogue is great, especially from her, all performed incredibly as well by the cast.
Oh, and I mean, who's in this? Like, there are no big names for starters. When I want to watch a show, I want to watch, especially if it's a British show, it needs to have somebody from the cast of Harry Potter. Otherwise, it's an instant no for me, right?
But imagine you put Ron Weasley in this.
Oh,
All
immediately.
seriousness and all of the seriousness and all of the importance of this storyline gone out the window when you see Ron Weasley scrolling in.
But it's a no-name cast. I would prefer to see Ron Weasley. Why did he have to make a show and then write it and then cast himself in it? Like, it is so masturbatory, right? Which we get to see him do a lot in the show. Eek, yuck, yuck.
Switch.
We get to watch him masturbate in this show, and that's not there enough in television. I feel like our TV has been unsexualized, and we need to see more sex. We need to see sex that makes us feel hot and heavy, and we need to see sex that makes us uncomfortable, and I felt both.
I disagree. I think it's vulgar. Some of it, it's very triggering as well for some people to be watching some of these sexual things that are happening on the screen. Um, we are. It's also visually, if we're talking about visuals now, it's dark, it's dingy, it's dusty. So how am I supposed to be entertained or drawn in by anything that is as dark and depressing visually as this series was?
I mean, that's just London, isn't it? It's dark, it's depressing, it's capturing London in its true light. It's a real depiction of what it was like being in London when I was there, at least. I don't know if your London's any different. I see some sunlight behind you. Is it sunny today?
I think that there is ways of bringing brightness into these dark stories, and I think that should have come through. I think, but
Sweet.
there was some really. I think that it's such a good thing that we're able to um, be drawn into this dark and dingy place, just like the places that this comedian is performing in. They are dark and dingy. They're basements, they're cellars. There's people, there's strange people there. It's an uncomfortable atmosphere, and it only draws us in to this enclosed space and makes us feel these emotions that he is feeling. We feel anxious for him because of how this looks.
Oh man, we do feel. I felt anxious throughout, and one of the main reasons, out of not one of the main, one of the other reasons I felt anxious was because of its depiction of trans people in this show. Horrifying. They're used as a prop, as a something to sometimes mock, or it's a stand-in for his own kinky sexuality. I think in this modern world we should know better than to treat trans people like this in our TV shows.
I think he is quite upfront and honest about his relationship there. with Terry, and I think it's important that he is quite honest about the way that he's treated her, because this is a topic at the moment that is being discussed in the media, but not something that you see very often on television and fiction.
Let's not go there. Okay, let's face it. Donnie is terrible. Terry is terrible, and this baby reindeer needs to be put down. I think that's a great place to end our debate. So, Katie, what did you really think of baby reindeer?
Wow, hi Sam. That was tough because I'll tell you what I really thought of Baby Reindeer was I ultimately I don't think I liked the show. And I think I'm still deciding on that. I think it's something that's gonna be in I've had many discussions about this. I've had many thoughts about this. And I mean, ultimately, if something that's getting you thinking this much about something has to have some weight to it. And it does, it has a lot of weight to it. But ultimately, it made me uncomfortable, and it is still making me uncomfortable because it is still a very hot topic in the media as well, with everything that's happened afterwards, and the aftercare of the real life people that this show is about, and it's making me very uncomfortable for quite honestly, the well-being of the people that are are in this show.
Yeah. Do you think so? Just to give people a bit of insight about what's happening because of the show, people are like, okay, who's Martha? Who's Terry? What actually happened? What bar did you work to? People are researching this. And this is now affecting the real lives of people who were involved in this, and they didn't really have a say in the story being told.
Yeah, I think that the main issue now is that people are curious. Obviously, people are curious about this real life story, and I think the woman that is the real life Martha has been found, or people have found out who this is, and is now quite upset about this, and is actually speaking out on social media about it. Um, and I think my issue with that is that quite clearly in the show, it's portrayed very well that she is, she's unwell. She's not somebody that knows what she's doing, or knows the repercussions of what she's doing, or has any self awareness. Um, so therefore, this story and any work that she might have done to, recover from any illness that she is suffering from, uh, could be undone with this show. I think this is trauma for her as well, and
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I
yeah,
guess to play the devil's advocate here, do you think that it is the show's responsibility? Is it a show's, piece of entertainment at the end of the day? Is it its moral responsibility to be like, I don't want to hurt this person's mental well-being or feelings, or
I think it
especially,
is.
yeah, go on.
I think it is, because as much as it is Richard Gadd's story, it's also this lady's story as well. Because let's face it, I mean, they've both been victims, and it's a really strange situation as well. So how do you get around it? But I think that more could have been done to conceal the identities of these people. I mean, for one, it's set in the place where it happened.
Yes.
It's it really hasn't tried to conceal, and the guy that it happened to is playing the main character. I mean,
Yeah.
I know that people want to create and they want to tell their stories. I just think that this could have been foreseen and
Yeah.
perhaps avoided.
Like, strangely, people are more curious about who kind of Marta is and researching her, but the guy in episode 4 isn't really talked about as much, and nobody really knows who that person
I
is.
think that's been a discussion as well, that actually Richard Gadd had made a comment about on his Instagram page, and that's what sort of triggered him into saying, please stop trying to look for these real life people, because it's hurting some friends that I have. And obviously he has a lot of relationships with a lot of different writers and
Yeah,
comedians and performers, and of course that speculation's gonna land on their
yeah,
doorsteps as well. So I think it's a big responsibility, and I get he wants to tell the story. I understand it's a unique story. It's a strange story, and it's it is compelling, and I found myself wanting to know more about the real life story as well.
yeah.
So it's human nature.
I had a few problems. Well, I think for starters, it is a very compelling show, right? I watched a few episodes. I told you, hey, you should watch this. This is something to watch, Uh, and it wasn't until I got till the very end where I was like, okay, this is how I feel about the show. And the problems I have with it are, I think this. I think firstly, it kind of Donnie isn't a likable character, right? He's making kind of terrible decisions over and over and over again. And
Mm.
I kind of gave the film or the show credit because I was like, oh, this is his real story. And he's kind of not trying to make himself look like anything other. Like he's not trying to come off as a hero. He's kind of, it's warts and all. This is what happened. And so I wanted to give that thing credit. And I did for a long time where I was like, okay, I think he is self aware of the fact that he was making all these mistakes, even if this character isn't, right? Um, and then, you kind of get to episode 4 and then you kind of move on from there. And my kind of takeaway from that was in the show he kind of goes like, hey, I did all these horrible things because, or like, I treated this stalker this way, and like my experience with the stalker was like this because I went through this sexual trauma earlier. And my kind of takeaway was actually what happened to him in episode 4 is the exact same thing that happened to him with Marta. It's the same behavior, but leading to kind of slightly different consequences, right? And so I didn't think that, oh, this he's treating Marta like this because this thing happened. I just felt like he has some other deep-seated issues that goes on for a long time, but he's kind of using this kind of sexual trauma and assault as almost an excuse to like be like, look, I know, I'm making terrible decisions, but this is why. Um, and that didn't sit right with me. And then by the time we kind of got to the end, I kind of realized that this character, I'm going to call it, it's hard to differentiate between character and the creator,
Mm.
but this character isn't, or this character is like a masochist. Like they like things being horrible for them, right? They want that attention and misery, and they keep acting in that same way. And so, what at first I was like, oh, this is really brave that he's actually telling the story. I was like, this is just another version of him being a masochist and being like, look how awful I am, and putting it out on Netflix for everybody to see and getting kind of adoration for it. And I was like, I don't think I want to kind of facilitate that. I don't want to be part of that. I felt icky by the end that
Mm.
I was now involved in this person's kind of trauma, and I was like enabling it almost. Yeah,
Yeah, I know what you mean. And the thing is as well is that we know it's a true story. We don't know how true it is in terms of, has he made his character behave worse, behave better? Um has he made, Martha's character
yeah,
behave in a different way? Has he dulled it down? Has he exaggerated it? Um so it's a really difficult, I think it's just a really difficult and unique situation that I think Netflix and Richard Gadd, the producers as well, should have. I mean, I'm sure that they might have done, but had a serious conversation about, this is something that's actually not been done before in this manner, and how should we go about it? Um,
Yeah. I think that if you remove all of that from it, I think there's a lot of things that are compelling about it. I think the
mm,
performances are like pretty amazing.
yeah,
I think the show is funny sometimes, and sometimes
mm,
when it's trying to be uncomfortable, it's very Sometimes I go like, okay, how do I kind of critique a thing? And I think to myself, did the creator of this thing accomplish the thing that they wanted to? Right? And did they? And I
mm,
think on that level, yes, I think the show accomplishes what it wanted to. So in that way, it's well made. But it didn't sit right with me at the end.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and so it's a little hard to criticize the actual making of the show. Great music, great sound, like the way it's shot, the acting, um, everything about it. It does make me though question that if this wasn't a true story, right? If it was just another story that somebody made
mm,
up, would it just be as compelling? And I don't think so. I don't think it would create as much buzz or people would care as much, or I don't think I would have sat through the whole thing if it wasn't a true story. And
a
that
true
makes me go
story.
like, does
Yeah,
that mean it's not as good? Like, does it need that kind of little like true story like pedestal to be more interesting?
yeah, that's the thing, and ultimately, would this have even been made if it wasn't a true story? Um,
Yeah.
we know this came from an Edinburgh show, a play, which is, kudos to Richard Gadd, who's worked hard on this and obviously took a lot of consideration in writing this and creating it even before the show was made, even before the TV show. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it's got to have that draw. It's got to have that true story
Yeah.
draw to be that compelling. But also, could it have been, set in a different place with a different actor? Could have
Yeah.
been.
It's interesting to think what he might do next. Is he out of stories? I don't know. Hopefully something terrible happens to him in the future that he can write about. I don't mean that as a joke. Well, before we get to the end, I do want to know how many emails would you send to Baby Reindeer? 1 out of 10, 10 being you love it, you want to stalk it, one being that you want to get a restraining order against it.
This is a difficult question, and I think it's going to change every day. I keep thinking about this thing, but right now, I think I would give it four emails out of 10 emails.
Yeah, I kind of want to give it two different ratings. I think
Hmm.
just kind of I'm gonna say almost objectively, I would give it like a 8 out of 10. Where I'm like, oh, you guys have like I've recommended this to a lot of people even before I watched like
Yeah,
3 episodes and I recommended people watch it. Right? I don't think I
yeah,
would have recommended it if I had finished the show, but I did. But as it sits now, I think for me it's about a 3 out of 10 because it made me feel icky, and I don't
hmm.
want that from my TV shows.
Yeah. And it's still making me feel icky, and people keep talking about it every time I open my phone. It's my own fault. It's my own algorithm. It's giving me
Yeah.
this stuff.
Well, I've stopped. I literally stopped clicking on anything that has something to do with it because I don't like
Mm,
how it make me feel. Well, hopefully that's not true for the audience of this show, and they clicked on this episode. Thank you so much for joining me today, Katie. We'll be back again soon with another review. Take care.
thanks.